Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content.
So this weekend, I got the opportunity to go and watch the Peach Bowl. And the reason I wanted to go and see the Peach Bowl was because we have spent a lot of time on this channel talking about two names that don't play for the Cleveland Browns right now. Dante Moore and Fernando Mendoza. And I've watched a lot of their games live. I've watched their all 22. But the one thing I haven't got the opportunity to do, and I thought I wasn't going to get the opportunity to do, is to be able to watch both of these players live before the end of the college football season. Obviously, the playoffs end up the way they do. I get the opportunity to see both of them. And every year I try to get my eyes on some of the top quarterback prospects of that class, right? Last year I went to go see Cam Ward live. This year, at the beginning of the season, when we all thought that Cade Klubnik was going to possibly be a top prospect, went to go see him. That turned out to be a day 3 guy, but did get to see who ended up being at the top of the quarterback conversation this year, Dante Moore and Fernando Mendoza. And I have a lot of thoughts after seeing them live versus watching them on tape all season. Now, spoiler warning, if you're expecting me to let one game kind of negate a whole body of work, that's not going to be what happens. I'm not going to fall in love with the quarterback after one good game. I'm not going to throw a quarterback aside after one bad game. I tend to care about the body of work and what the body of work says more so than what one individual result happened. But we're going to talk about the whole thing. But first, I got to thank my sponsor, Sleeper. Hey, guess what? The NFL season is finally here, and that means you've got a fantastic opportunity with daily fantasy football on the Sleeper app. Football has never been more exciting than it is now with players like CJ Stroud, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, etc. Pick on stats for these stars like touchdowns, passing yards, receiving yards, and fantasy points and more for up to 100x payout on Sleeper. Get your picks right and you can win big. Use promo code WORSTTAKE and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Download the #1 sports app today and experience it for yourself. Also, remember that you can use the promo code WORSTTAKE and get up to $100 match on your first deposit. All right, so I'm going to start with Fernando Mendoza. One, because I want to be brief here about Mendoza because I think he is definitely going #1 overall and the Browns aren't going to have the opportunity to get him. But just in case the small percentage of reality where that doesn't happen happens and the Browns do get some kind of opportunity to get at him, I do want to fully voice my opinion on what I have seen of him throughout this college football season, what I've seen from him on film so far. Still more things to look up. And what I saw when I saw him in person. The first thing I will say with Mendoza, when you see him in person, he is a better athlete than I think the television gives him credit for. He looks a lot faster in person than he does on TV, to the point to where I don't really have concerns about his athletic ability after watching him run. Like, there was one play where he got to the corner and he like legit ran away from some Oregon secondary members. And I think that kind of tells you that he has enough speed to be able to make a play or two. What Mendoza doesn't lack, what Mendoza doesn't have as far as athletic ability is, he's not going to be someone who creates a lot behind the line of scrimmage. He's not going to run around there like Joe Burrow or anything like that. But what he can do is run straight, right? Like if he's breaking the pocket, you leave him a wide open lane because you're in man coverage, he's going to be able to get 10, 15 yards there and take advantage of that. He is not a negative athlete. The other thing I noticed while watching him live is that the arm strength looks a lot. I mean, like, it wasn't bad when you watch it on tape. I want to be clear on that. But the ball has a lot more pop in person to me. Like when he throws in person, the ball feels like it carries, it drives a lot faster than it looks like on tape. So those are like the two concerns about Mendoza going into that game. See him in person completely alleviated those concerns for me. I'm going to be honest with you. If the Browns got the opportunity to draft Fernando Mendoza, I'd be all over it. I'd be pounding the table all for them taking Fernando Mendoza. I don't think there's going to be much debate as the draft process goes on. I know there was like some hummings and haws of people being like, well, I don't see what he is, and he's not really a number one. I think people are slowly but surely getting off of that as they get more familiar with Fernando Mendoza. And look, I was on him like at the beginning of the season because I had heard so many people in the draft community, Corey Kinnon, Steelers DB, Derek Bell, JP Acosta, really talking him up, bringing him up as early as last year during like the Senior Bowl circuit, right? Like they were bringing him up as a potential quarterback for 2026. And I even catching on as late as I did, which was like around the beginning of the season last year. I know that when you bring up Mendoza, like people's knee-jerk reaction is to say that he's not good or he's Kirk Cousins or whatever it is. I think he's going to be a good quarterback if he goes to a good situation. I think he's smart, really smart guy, really quick thinker, accurate processor, and really accurate thrower of the football. He has really strong tools. I think he's a good athlete, not an amazing athlete, but a good athlete. I think he is a really talented thrower of the football. If the Browns had the number one overall pick, I have no problem recommending that they take Fernando Mendoza. I'd be very excited about that opportunity. Is it like an Andrew Luck generational prospect? Hell no, he's not a generational prospect by any means. Like, and let me be clear on that. Mendoza's not a generational prospect. Is he a prospect that should go number one overall in his draft class? Yeah. Yeah, he should. I think in most draft classes, he goes number one overall at the quarterback position. He's a good quarterback prospect, a really good quarterback prospect. I think he has the potential to be, just based on his physical talent, to be a 5 to 15 ranked quarterback. I think his ability at the end of games, his clutchness that he's demonstrated in his college career could be what takes him over the top into being one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He just kind of has a knack for making big plays in big moments. He has that ice water in his veins. He's a really, really strong quarterback prospect. I don't think there's really many holes with him. You can maybe ding him because he doesn't have Pat Mahomes' arm strength, but he has good arm strength. He's more accurate than most guys coming out of college at the position. And I think he's a much faster processor than most guys coming out. Would you like more experience in the Big Ten? Sure. Would you like, a little bit quicker of an athlete, a little bit looser of an athlete? I think so. But do you think that that's going to stop him from being successful? I doubt it. I think he's going to be a successful quarterback in the NFL. It'd be interesting to see how he does with the Raiders situation, because the Raiders legit feel like the worst landing spot for anybody right now. But if they hire like John Harbaugh, create some stability, get a good offensive coordinator hire, I still think that situation can work itself out. So yeah, I would go Mendoza number one overall. I think there's a difference between him and Dante Moore at this point that Moore can't surpass. And I think it's clear cut. No doubt in my mind, that guy's going number one overall in the draft. Maybe there's a little bit of a question of who's going to be making the pick, but I don't think the Raiders are going to pass that one up. That would be very difficult to pass up. He's a pretty clear number one overall pick. And it's funny how this situation kind of reminds you of the 2016 draft where the Browns had the number two overall pick. And it was like at some point, Jared Goff separated himself and was clearly the number one overall pick. But there was a question about whether Carson Wentz should go number two overall because he only played at FCS North Dakota State. With Dante Moore, it's not a question of competition that you have. It's a question of level of games, right? I tend to not care about how many starts you have overall. I said this same thing, by the way, when it came to the extreme version of this with Dylan Gabriel last year as a prospect, where I said, I think people are overrating the amount of college starts that he has and how effective that was. I thought that people made way too big of a deal about his college starts and how many starts Dylan Gabriel had. Because I don't think college starts, having a million college starts, really translates to picking up a NFL offense quickly or being able to better execute a NFL offense quickly, because a lot of it is just based on talent. So I'm not a big believer that having 50 starts makes a difference. I'm not going to be a huge believer that him having less than 20 starts is a reason to not draft him. I want to talk about, like, just tell me what Dante Moore is as a prospect and isn't, and what he's demonstrated in the games that he has. And this is less clear cut than Mendoza. This is why he's not going to be the number one overall pick. He has more questions than Mendoza. I think there is a chance that teams don't love the amount of questions that Dante Moore offers in the top 3 of this draft, and maybe he does fall to the Browns at 6 or fall to a point to where the Browns can make a trade up to go get Dante Moore. And if they're in that situation, spoiler warning, I would heavily recommend that the Browns would do it. But let's talk about Dante Moore as a prospect. When it comes to the good, a lot of the stuff is similar to what we talked about with Mendoza. The only difference is that Mendoza is 6'5" and has undeniable evidence at this point that he could do it against elite competition in college football, where Dante Moore does not have that, right? Like, we're watching Mendoza just tear apart the biggest brands in college football last 3 weeks. Alabama, Ohio State, and Oregon just dismantled them. He didn't dismantle Ohio State, to be fair, but got Ohio State out the paint when they looked unbeatable, and then dismantled Alabama and completely tore apart an Oregon defense that has like 5 or 6 draft picks in that defense. Like, just completely dismantled them, disregarded them like they were nothing. Dante Moore has no such dominance on his resume, which is why he is a clear number 2 to Fernando Mendoza at this point. But what he does well, really quick processor. I think he sees it. He makes a decision. He can be very decisive, and he's very accurate. He actually charts better, at least in the regular season. I wonder how the playoffs would change this, but in the regular season, in Corey Kinnon's on-target charting project, I believe Dante Moore charted better than him in accuracy. I will say, from seeing Dante Moore live, one, you do see the accuracy. He's a very accurate passer. He made a couple of passes that were just like on the button, even in a game where he struggled heavily in. Also, I will say, I think there is a difference in arm strength between Mendoza and Moore. I think Moore's arm is not as live as Mendoza is after seeing it in person. I think Mendoza puts a little bit more spin, a little bit more oomph, a little bit more drive on that ball. Moore's ball, it's not bad. It's not weak arm. I wouldn't say it's weak arm, but it's certainly just fine. It's fine plus, I would say. Mendoza has a good arm, a pretty decent arm right there, right? So Dante Moore, really accurate passer, really quick processor. And I think he is somebody who, if you put him in a system where he is asked to be on time and in structure and in rhythm, he can unlock another level to that kind of offense that can make him an upper tier quarterback for sure, right? Like, I think this is the guy that a Kyle Shanahan, for example, dreams of. Somebody who's good, accurate, quick processor, talented, athletic enough to scramble out of certain situations. but really accurate, really on time, really clean with his feet and mechanics. And also only 20 years old. So I do think some of this stuff can improve, the more natural ability stuff, right? I don't know. He's probably not going to grow more. He's 6'1", almost 6'2". So he's past the threshold of NFL quarterback height, but not really like this 6'5" giant that Mendoza is. I also think maybe the arm strength can improve because he is so young. And I think he will learn to pick and choose his spots more for being aggressive, and fine tune that ability. And that's going to be what unlocks that next level in him. There are some drawbacks to Dante Moore, and I think we have seen those drawbacks in the postseason, right? When he gets pressured, I don't think he has developed a great response to it on a consistent basis. Here's what I mean by this. When Dante Moore gets pressured and he's staying in the pocket and stepping up, I think he actually is pretty strong against pressure in those situations. You go and watch him against like USC, where he's dealing with a lot of pressure, but he's staying in the pocket and he's stepping up and he's not being flushed. He has answers. He's quick. He's fast. He makes good, accurate throws. All of that stuff's there. You have much less to be concerned about when that's the situation. What I think Indiana was able to do well to Dante Moore was force him out the pocket. And I think that's where Dante Moore struggles. To be fair to Dante, there is a non-zero chance that this is just kind of the drawback of the Oregon offense. Because if the Oregon offense, since Dan Lanning has got there, if I have any major criticisms about it, which I have a lot, I don't like the Oregon offense, but it works in college to a point, is that it's an offense that really struggles when having to work from behind. If you watch that game, Dan Lanning was calling screens and runs down 30 points. That's the fucking Oregon offense for you, right? Like, they're going to run that offense no matter what. And that drives me crazy about the Oregon offense. The other thing about the Oregon offense is that it is so structured that it does not allow a lot of room for improvisation, and it doesn't encourage it, which means when somebody does break the pocket, you're not going to have a ton of opportunity to be creative there, because everything is so reliant on being on time. And what Indiana was able to do and what Ohio State did in the Rose Bowl the year before is break the offense by forcing the quarterback to play a little bit more off schedule. And when that happens with Dante Moore, when he has to be a little bit more off schedule, when teams are able to force the offense to be more off schedule, whether it's because of his inability to have that creativeness as a passer or the offense's inability to have that creativeness as a passer, he struggles. And Oregon in this game went down early, quick, because Dante Moore threw a pick six to start. He was late on an out route, and I think it was Bonds that jumped it, made a great play on the out, boom, returns it. Shit happens. You know, it's not the worst thing in the world for a quarterback, but it sucks, certainly. Like, you don't want it. The guy jumps your pass. Kind of a predictable approach from Oregon, gets taken advantage of. The second fumble, I don't really think is Dante Moore's fault because he tried to throw his screen, but the running back bumped into his arm and knocked the ball loose. I don't know what he's supposed to do about that one. That's not really on him. But that put the Oregon offense in a position where they were down 14. And when that offense is down 14, you can watch any Oregon game since Dan Lanning has been there. When Oregon gets down, that offense turns into a pumpkin real quick because it's just not an offense built. It's not an offensive philosophy built for coming down. It's an offensive philosophy built for dominating teams that you can get a lead on, but not necessarily for coming back late in games. So some of this, I do wonder if Dante Moore has the ability to be a better off-schedule thrower, but because he's in the Oregon offense, it's not something we're going to have insight to. It's kind of like when CJ Stroud was at Ohio State. And then he went to the NFL with the Houston Texans. And then you found out that CJ Stroud was good at like 3 or 4 things that he never did at Ohio State, right? Like he was a much better off schedule thrower of the football than he was at Ohio State in the pros because he had better options in the pros. He was a much better runner than we saw him at the college level, in the NFL level, because he had more freedom to do that, right? Maybe Dante Moore is a better runner than we think right now. If I had to rank based on what we've seen this year, the runners in this class, what is Trinidad Chambliss is probably the best scrambler in the class right now. And then you have Mendoza, number 2. I would put Ty Simpson 3, and then Dante Moore 4 right now. But I don't know how much of that is like, hey, they don't ask him to do a ton of that at Oregon, right? They'll run him on some design runs, but they don't really ask him to scramble, off schedule, play make. That's not part of that offense in Oregon. The reasons why I would feel comfortable ultimately with the Browns moving up is because I think there's enough there talent wise, and he's only 20 years old, right? I think there is enough of an upside with the combination of his talent, what he brings to the table, what he's demonstrated the entire college football season, and his age, where he's at, that you feel like there's a future there. I think Dante Moore, when he gets to 23, which is going to be in like 3 seasons, will be at the point to where he does have off-schedule answers. And then you're able to take advantage of his on time and his accuracy. And I think there's a very high-level quarterback there that can be squeezed out. He's going to take a little bit more work, a little bit more time because he is younger. I think Mendoza's a finished product pretty much coming out of Indiana. Obviously, every rookie has their adjustment period. But I think you get Mendoza, you know what you're getting yourself into. There's not a lot of projecting you need to do there. You should be able to build a good offense in Las Vegas with Mendoza in year 1 if you're a competent team. With Dante Moore, it's going to be a bit more of a journey, right? I don't expect him to be amazing right away, but I do think that you can build a winning football team around him. And I think he could be a quarterback in the future that you can win a championship with because he's so smart with the football, because he makes good, quick decisions. I think that will give him a high baseline eventually in the league that will allow him to be consistent, and that consistency paired with a really good defense, paired with an offense that he can have some tools with, can provide you a Super Bowl team or a team that's consistent enough offensively to be able to get there. So not a great game from Dante Moore by any metric. I don't think anybody's going to tell you he played great in that game. I mean, he hasn't had the playoff run that I think he wanted. The other question with Dante Moore is, will he come out? I think that is going to be a more clear yes as time goes on. There was the whole thing with Dylan Raiola committing to Oregon now in the transfer portal. Now, there's been reports that he's willing to sit behind Dante Moore, but I don't know how much of this Dylan Raiola situation you guys have followed. I call immediate bullshit on that idea. This is a guy who's transferred high schools 3 times. And then went to Nebraska because he could play right away. This is not somebody interested in sitting the bench anytime soon. So I imagine he's at Oregon because they know Dante Moore's on his way out. And from everything that I've heard, it seems like Dante Moore is going to declare for the draft. And if he does declare and the Browns have an opportunity at him at 6, I would definitely take him. If the Browns have an opportunity to trade up, maybe 2 seconds, and swapping first, I would consider doing that very heavily, to the point to where I would probably lean towards doing it. Maybe you want to get more eyes, more tape on Dante Moore before you're super comfortable doing that. But I would be at the point to where I'd be okay with it, right? The Browns got to do something at quarterback. I think this is a strong option. I don't think it's just throwing shit at the wall, right? I think it's a strong option that can end in getting exactly what you want out the quarterback position. But that's my thoughts from watching the game, from being there live. There's another thought I have here that's not really related to the Browns or the Browns quarterback future. Indiana is going to be a powerhouse. Like, that is a massive fan base at Indiana. They pretty much sold out the new Georgia Dome down there. That's a big fan base. with a lot of money. I don't think Indiana's going anywhere in the college football picture. Like, they're going to have enough money to keep Cignetti. I don't think Cignetti has any interest in the NFL as it speaks right now. He's a pretty college-born guy. And Indiana's as good as a job if they get the money raised for football as any other job in the Big Ten outside of Ohio State. I don't see him leaving. So that Indiana program, they win the championship this year, and they continue to have success after this season, they're going to be a program. Like, it's going to be a different era. You're going to be talking about Indiana's run as a college football potential blue blood in the future. It sounds crazy, but yeah, that's the other thing I noticed while I was there, is how deep that fan base is. I did not know that was that big of a fan base at Indiana. That was an impressive showing from the Indiana fans. But anyways, that's my thoughts from going to that game. You let me know what you think. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.